Hey friends, how are you? It's Mr. McKinney here with Mr. McKinney's Historic Houston. Excited for tonight's show, another live performance we have here at the Heritage Society. We're actually in our brand new studio, so I want you to really check out the studio real quick. Go ahead and pan around. Check it out. This studio is courtesy of Kirksey Gregg Productions LLC. And you might know the name Kirksey Gregg because they do amazing floor designs. They do amazing productions with all their great items like this for every event. And also they have Bayou Place. You might know Bayou Place. It's right over there at the old 1967 Albert Thomas Convention Center. So we're excited to have Kirksey Gregg on our board and thank him so much for all this great items that he donated to us so we can do live shows here. And of course, one day we'll have a live audience. Not yet, but one day we will. But for right now, we've got some wonderful information for you all about Astros baseball history. So, of course, Mike Acosta is on the agenda for tonight. You're going to love him. He is somebody who knows Houston baseball, knows Astros history. Before we get started with him, we always like to give you some information, by the way, about the history community. This, again, is our studio over here. Here we go. And again, thank you to Kirksey Gregg. I mentioned him earlier. Kirksey Gregg Productions did a wonderful job, and that's what they do. That's what they specialize in. So we're very happy to have them transform our tea room into the space you're seeing now. Real quick, while we get excited and get ready and have people join us on board, by the way, do us a huge favor because we're monitoring everything on all of our social media sites. Go ahead and hit the like button. Hit the like button, hit the heart button. If you're excited as I am about Mike Acosta tonight, go ahead and hit the like button so we know that you're paying attention, you're out there. Go ahead and say hi. Let us know who's out there because we got the screens over here. We'll definitely do some shout outs and let people know who's joining us today too, which we really do appreciate. This week, by the way, in the Houston history community, I want to let you know about some awesome events that are coming up. We talked about it last week, but the folks that are joining us in now, this is the Airport History Masterclass by Michael Bloodworth. So zoom in on that. This event takes place this Saturday, August 22nd, 12 o'clock, over at the beautiful 1940 Air Terminal Museum. The admission for this is, the lecture itself by Michael Bloodworth is free, but you've got to pay $5 to go in the museum, of course, and it's absolutely worth it because you learn so much about Houston aviation history when you join, and that's going to be your school, by the way. That's your school, and then here's your classroom. So it's really a special treat to be able to hear Michael Bloodworth speak. He was one of our first historian guests on the show that we had, and we're excited to have, once again, Michael Bloodworth with Houston's aviation history doing a master class this Saturday over at the beautiful 1940 Air Terminal Museum. The first class is going to be at noon. It's limited to about 15 people, and I believe they will be showing it online. So take a moment to get to know the 1940 Air Terminal Museum at 1940airterminal.org for more information about our buddy Michael Bloodworth's awesome lecture. Hey, speaking of some great things that are happening this weekend, happening on Sunday, the 23rd, August 23rd Sunday is the 103rd anniversary of the 1917 Camp Logan Mutiny. This is my buddy Priscilla T. Graham. She has an organization called History Through the Lens. She's all about documenting early African-American settlements in Texas. She does an amazing job doing this with a whole series of books that she's created. And her newest book is coming out. It's a book release and exhibit happening once again on Sunday, August 23rd. It's going to be at the corner of Wilson and Andrew Street in the heart of the 4th Ward, Freedmanstown area. It takes place at 2 o'clock, from 2 o'clock to 4 o'clock. And it's a socially distanced event because it's going to be outdoors with the wonderful fresh air. So please join my buddy Priscilla T. Graham and buy her book all about early Texas stories about African-American experience here. It's a rare opportunity, so don't miss that exhibit once again happening on the 23rd, which is Sunday. She's back. She's back for another, let's see, I think Instagram's having a hard time hearing us. Let's see. Sorry about that. And we can always figure it out, too. If we have to do it last time, Kian, we can do that. So she's back. She's back, by the way, and that's your feedback helps, by the way. If you've got feedback about the show, if you've got feedback or questions, I know you're going to have a lot of questions when Mike Acosta gets here, but I want to make sure you ask questions now about things that are happening. So if you can't hear on Instagram still, let us know. We'll be happy to adjust the sound. It's a work in progress. It's also a live show, so I'll let Kian focus on this little knob over here and make sure that's totally in where it needs to be. Everything seems like it's right, but we'll figure it out. Okay. Kimber Fountain is joining us once again on September 30th, the author and Galveston historian. She's going to talk about the 120th anniversary of the seawall. This is a big deal because on September 8th and September 9th, we are going to be celebrating the 120th anniversary of the Great Storm of 1900. And her book captures all of that. It's called The Seawall Chronicles, and she's offering a really special opportunity for viewers out there. Kimber is offering to our viewers a special of free shipping and a personalized autographed book for the month of August. So you've got to hurry. You only got a couple more days left in the month of August, right? To buy her book, she gives you free shipping, and of course she'll autograph it. So the promo code is Seawall120. Makes sense, Seawall120. And you go to kimberfountain.square.site. That's how you buy the books from her directly. And many of those authors out there listening, you know it's a lot easier to buy the book from you directly than it is to go to Amazon and things like that, which you can still go to Amazon, but she'll get you the free shipping right there with Seawall 120 on her website. And you're supporting local authors, but you're also getting involved with the content about the Great Seawall itself, this engineering feat. Now, she, of course, is the author of Galveston's Red Light District as well, and the Macios, the Free State of Galveston, an authorized biography. Both of those are her books, all three, and she's going to offer shipping on all three free. So it's an opportunity. If you love Galveston history, go ahead and buy all three books and you support a local author. More importantly, you'll get excited about our talks we have with her on September 30th. By the way, if you also love old postcards, keep Wednesday, September 2nd open at 7 o'clock because we have with us on our live show the one and only Daniel E. Monsanto. He is the author of the Houston Postcard book. This book is by Acadia. You've seen it all over the place, and there it is. You can get a copy of it at numerous places, Walgreens, every CVS, and every single Amazon.com. It's all available. And like I said, he'll be talking about his book. He's going to take us on a journey through Houston's history through postcards. So it's definitely something you don't want to miss on September 2nd. That's Wednesday, September 2nd, 7 o'clock, right here. There is Daniel E. Monsanto. He's also, by the way, the past president for the Houston Postcard Club, so which I'm a member of and active with, so it's really awesome to have a past president here helping to really teach us all about Houston's forgotten history through old historic postcards. It's going to be a treat. Speaking of treats, thank you again to the wonderful Ann Sloan who joined us last week. It was wonderful having her. She took us on a VIP tour inside her brand new exhibit. So if you got a chance to check that out, and if you missed it, by the way, last week's show, we always remind you, you can see the shows on YouTube, okay? We've got a great collection of shows on YouTube, all the past shows. Now, we only have about 230 subscribers, so please take a couple of seconds to go to your cell phone or your computer and type in YouTube and like our page, subscribe to it. When you subscribe, you'll get notifications about the other videos that we have. We have a variety of videos beyond just the Live with Mr. McKinney shows. We also have shows about architecture. We've got videos about history tours, and then videos about the African American experience. So lots of great content on our YouTube page. Best kept secret, sadly, only 216 people, so we need you to like our YouTube page to help us grow and spread Houston history. We've been doing it since 1956. We need your help, and it's easy to do. It costs you nothing to go onto YouTube and subscribe to our page. And by the way, if you have a Google page, you also have a YouTube page, okay? Now, let's talk about this. On this day in Houston history, right, August 19th, 1965, you have it right over there. Look what happened. Who can guess? Some of y'all were there. There it is, Thursday, August 19th, 1965, over at the Sam Houston Coliseum. The Beatles played here in Houston. How cool is that? How cool is that to be able to have that? So there we are. This is courtesy of my buddy Chris Allen, who's a radio legend. He was on several stations here in the old days, and he actually has a page called Houston Broadcasters. It's a private group. You've got to be a broadcaster in order to join the group, but if you are a broadcaster out there watching, go ahead and join Houston Broadcasters because you'll learn a lot about Houston radio history, with that particular page. We are going to have a guest with us, by the way. His name is, of course, Chris Varela, who's going to talk about the early history of radio. So this page kind of covers things from the 1950s on. Chris Farrell is going to talk about the 1920s, right? The early days of radio. He's going to be on September 23rd. So like I said, lots of great programs happening here at the Heritage Society. Do not miss out on those. August is Houston's birthday month, and we love to talk about this in a big way. I want to invite everybody, you can zoom in over here, to like our social media pages, the pages that I have called Mr. McKinney's Historic Houston and the Houston History Bus, because we offer free tours on board our open-air school bus, and we do that for the month of August during Houston's birthday month. So you're going to learn about free tours. We're going to be on the TV coming up on August 30th, talk about that as well, so you'll see all that. So please, like I said, like and follow those sites so you can learn about them. Up next is Mike Acosta, but before Mike Acosta, we have with us the one and only. You got to hear from her because she runs this place, right? But before, let's bring her on out. Of course, her name is Allison Bell. Allison Ayers-Bell. She's with the Heritage Society. She is the executive director. There she is. Say hello, Allison.
Hello, everyone. Hello. Good evening. Thanks for joining us.
Yeah, well, so tell us what's going on with the Heritage Society.
Well, as I mentioned last week, our luncheon is coming up. It was supposed to be in the spring, of course, and we had to push it back a little, so it's going to be September 15th. And our speaker is the wonderful J.P. Bryan, who founded the Galveston's Bryan Museum. We are honoring Harriet and Truett Latimer, long time devoted members of the Heritage Society. Harriet was our president at one time. And of course, Dancy Ware and her husband James are going to be our honorary co-chairs.
She helped to save Galveston. I mean, Dancy
Yes.
Ware, back in the 80s and 90s, she was one of the ones working with George Mitchell and people like that to really save a lot of these structures. So it's just a wonderful who's who of people that love Houston history like we do here at the Heritage Society, and it's going to be a wonderful event. So
Absolutely.
For more information,
Contact our development director is Laura Woods, and we have a location. We are going to have an online silent auction that you can bid online for safety, of course, social distancing. And then I believe we may have to make it virtual. We're not sure yet, but we'll keep you posted.
yeah, like and follow our social media sites, and you'll learn about what's going on with the event that we have. Once again, telling our stories is a really important event. Well, another important event coming up tomorrow.
Yes, tomorrow. Betty Trapp Chapman, of course, our wonderful historian and co-curator of our women's suffrage exhibit, is going to be on our monthly lecture series, which we're going to start up again every third Thursday. We used to have them here in the tea room, but that's no longer possible. So she will be going virtual. You can watch her lecture starting at noon, and then she will have Q&A via Zoom at the end of the lecture. So if you have any great questions, watch her speak. She's fascinating. I learn something new every single time I hear her.
Betty Trapp Chapman, once again, noon on Thursday tomorrow. And also, by the way, tomorrow we have with us a wonderful speaker as well. Ann Sloan is going to be on the radio program that I have called the Houston Hour. So don't miss this out. It's going to be tomorrow, Thursday at 3 o'clock. So you'll get a triple and double dose of Houston history, right?
Double dose of Houston women's suffrage, yes.
You'll get Betty Trapp Chapman at noon, and you'll get Ann Sloan at 3 o'clock on KPFT 90.1. So that is exciting. Hey, prizes, the best part. We love talking about this. Here we go. So zoom on into some of the prizes that we have available. So we're going to show you the prizes we're going to give out, and then, of course, we're going to announce the winners, and then Allison Bell will mail them these awesome items, or you can come pick them up. So talk about what you have here.
Sure. So as you recall, last week was Ann Sloan, and we were in the museum, and we do sell suffrage merchandise online and in our gift shop. So whoever wins the prizes tonight, you're either going to get a tote bag, you're going to get a fabulous sash. You may have seen me wear this last week, and it kept slipping off, but this is our sash, women's suffrage sash. On August 26th, we're going to have a big event at City Hall. This is a wonderful children's book. It's been a very popular bestseller, and it shows the ladies who got in the car in New York and drove all through the United States, and they even came through Texas. There's a reference to Texas in here. And then, of course, we have these wonderful buttons that will be as door prize as well. So let's see who won.
Yeah, let's do it. Let's do it real quick. Here we go. So we'll do the questions like we always do. By the way, for those who watched Ann Sloan and stayed to the end, you're going to learn the answers right over here and you'll know, okay? So let's talk about women's suffrage and let's go through this. First question.
Who was it that said failure is impossible? And the answer, Susan B. Anthony, who began the movement. And the winner, Marcia Lutz, our devoted Marcia, who we think watches us every week.
Marcia, if you're out there right now, I can't see you. Give me some hearts, please. Go ahead and hit those heart buttons.
Yes,
Look at that. We're going to get some comments going over here, too.
Yes, Marcia, thank you for tuning in.
Hey, Jill Brooks is watching, too. Liz Lane, my buddy Liz Lane. Liz Lane, you're wonderful. You like all of my posts. You share them. Thank you so much, Liz Lane, for joining us. Awesome. Let's go to the next one. Here we go.
All right, who is the Houston African-American suffragist who had her very own beauty company? Not the national one, but the local. Did you know there was a local Houston suffragist? And the answer, her name is Nobia Franklin. But guess what? I don't think anyone got that answer right.
They didn't. And I know we went over it, and I even That's the exact same photo from the exhibit, and we did that on purpose so people could make that connection. So we got some other answers, but we didn't get this answer. So stay tuned, because Mike Acosta is going to have some really good questions for you. You know, and he's you know, a student of history, so a teacher of history as well. So he'll definitely be able to give us some good questions over here, and hopefully we'll get them right. Well, let's talk about this next question.
Who is the only woman to have ever served as the Chief Justice of the Texas Supreme Court? And I know somebody got this one right.
Oh yeah, this is a popular answer.
It was Hortense Ward, and we have a lot of references to her in our exhibit. And the winner was Magdalene Volkovic. I hope I say that correctly. Way to go, Magdalene. And then, what year did the all-female Texas Supreme Court serve? Do you recall what year? There they are, look. What year they all served. And that answer, 1925.
And the winner...
Nancy Bird.
Hey.
Nancy Bird. She's a great volunteer. She attends our luncheon.
Our Houston history rock star.
She's a descendant.
Yes, she's Sam Houston's great granddaughter, I believe. And she wore Julia Idison's dress. She told us. This was a bonus. It could have been a bonus question. But she told us that she wore that during a San Jacinto event over there, because she's on their board. She's on numerous boards. And just a really wonderful person who focuses on presenting Houston history. So we love Nancy Birch. Thanks for answering.
Thank you for
and a Lamar High School alumni, right?
Lamar. We're fellow alumni.
Look at that. Look at that. How about that? And she's a Rice Owl, too. So here we go.
And then what was the official outfit of the suffragist movement? And I think a lot of people got this one. Hello, what color is that?
It's an easy color.
White. So
and the winner is?
The winner is Sharon Schmidt Sampson. And I just want to give a shout out to Sharon, because she was watching us in the church when Kimber Fountain was talking, and she got an answer correct, and we couldn't find her. So she called our office. We found her, tracked her down. I sent her prize. I put a membership form in there, and guess what? She became a member last week. So we're so appreciative. Way to go, Sharon. We'll be sending you your membership packet, and guess what? You won another prize. So I'll put them all together. Thank you so much for watching.
Thank you for joining. I mean, that's the most important thing. I know a lot of you out there love the Heritage Society. You've been with us for many years, attending events that we have and things like that. But becoming a member really makes a big difference, especially during these times. So people can do that on our website. All the information is out there. And then here's
as I mentioned, we have all these wonderful suffragist items in our gift shop. But I'm filling orders every day all over the United States, because you can also buy them on Etsy and on eBay and on our website, Squarespace. But I'm carrying out a few items to different people, to their cars, so I can do curbside delivery. I can mail them to you. These sashes are really taking a big hit, and we're selling a lot of them, because next week is Women's Equality Day on Wednesday, August 26th, and I think a lot of people want to wear a sash over their white dress to represent that big day.
You know, and get them now. Get them while you can, because I think they're going to sell out, especially by then. So please do that. All the great information is there.
The mugs are selling out quickly.
Yeah, you're shipping out a lot of those.
I'm shipping a lot of mugs. I'm learning how to be a post person.
Yeah, how about that? You might have a job.
Shipping magnet. Yes. So, and then of course our exhibit is still up. Our museum hours are Wednesday, Thursday, and Friday, 10 to 4. We tried the weekend, but not successful. So come by if you can. Lots of social distancing. Oh, and we have a virtual tour. If you don't feel like getting out, you can go on our website, and only for $5, you'll get to follow these little circles, and you get a 45-page book that goes with it to see all the panels up close. So, yeah. And then, let's see. Oh, and more of the...
Well, we show this photo to see how detailed it is. It's if you've attended some of these realtor open houses that are virtual now, it's the similar software, and it really takes you, and you can zoom in to see what's on these panels. It is that well done. So do not miss out, and the $5 nominal fee is what you'd be paying to go anywhere to the museum. So we appreciate folks supporting us in that matter, and you can do it from the comfort of your own home. Okay, we're getting close.
You know what? I think something arrived.
Really?
Let me show you.
Oh, let's go this way. Let's check it out.
I think something arrived that's going to surprise us.
Hey, look at this.
What is it? Let's talk about it.
We should talk about this. Okay, so this is a big announcement for y'all, okay? It's super big, and we're excited to be able to do this. So the Heritage Society and Mister McKinney's Historic Houston has partnered up for the last 4 years now on a birthday party for Houston consistently, and we love doing this. So check out this cake. This is from Three Brothers Bakery. And our guest, so next week's show is not going to be a traditional live show with the guests. We're going to have actually 2 guests, and it's going to be a live show of my radio show, The Houston Hour, with Mister McKinney and my special guest co-host, Paige Myrick. And we're going to be on talking with 2 amazing guests. One guest is, you can say, the first one.
The First Lady of Houston, Miss Lynn Wyatt.
The Lynn Wyatt is going to be on our show next week, August 26th at 7 o'clock right here. And then my buddy, Mayor Turner, is going to be coming on talking to us about growing up. Actually, they're both going to talk about growing up in Houston.
She's in the first half and he's in the second?
Exactly. And then we're going to cut the cake, okay? We'll cut the cake and celebrate. And then Manette Basil's actually coming in town for this, too. Yes. She's away, and now she's going to be back in this. So we're going to have everybody here. Our board president, Miss Preservation Houston.
Yes.
She's done a lot. She's done a lot, in the early days of preservation here to help save these structures that we all know and love.
In the market square area.
Absolutely, so we're excited about that. Once again, it's going to happen on Wednesday, August 26th, next week, but it'll be our radio show. We'll give you all the information on the Facebook pages of both Mr. McKinney's Historic Houston, which is why it's good to follow that page, and the Heritage Society. So make sure you follow both, and we'll celebrate Houston's 184th birthday next Wednesday. The actual birthday is August 30th, which is a Sunday, so we're not going to celebrate on Sunday. We're going to celebrate early to get you excited about the importance of preserving and promoting Houston history, okay?
Yeah.
Well, thank you so much, Allison Bell. Thanks for joining us on that. Well, I know what you're waiting for, and we want to make sure that we get you everything. Let's see. We want to get you all excited about our next guest. He's going to be coming on down right now. Let's say hello and a big welcome to the wonderful, the one and only Mike Acosta, the Houston Astros historian and authentication manager. Say hello, Mike.
How we doing?
Look at this. Here he is. Here, let's do that. There we go. Bam. Look at that. Welcome. That's your seat over here. I'm going to give you your mic over here. We're going to get them all mic'd up and ready to go. And I'll sit on my table over here. And we are super thrilled to have you because you're going to kind of take us, on this journey of, of really, baseball history here in Houston. I hope you can see the screen okay. Can you see the screen okay?
Well, who's that?
Look at that. It's right there.
Look at that guy.
Look at that guy. So let's get right into it. Let's first talk about you. Let's talk about what you do. Because you kind of explained it to me as well. Your title, Astros historian, pretty easy to grasp, right? The person that we go to for things and information about the Astros. But talk about the authentication manager side of things.
Well, it ties directly to historian because you want to have artifacts for team history, right? To preserve team history. So the Major League Authentication Program allows us to certify items that are worn by the players, used in the ball game. If it's a ball, if it's dirt on the field, or if it's a bat, if it's a helmet, whatever it is that's used in a ball game, there's a wide variety.
And you've got to authenticate it and certify it because one of the big things about sports is definitely the fans. I mean, it's probably one of the biggest things, right?
Yeah.
And they want a little piece of the action. They want a little piece of everything that's happening. And you mentioned dirt. Tell people what you have to do sometimes when it comes to authenticating dirt. I love this story.
Well, you never know. I mean, people are huge Astros fans that really want a part of the game, and that's why the Major League Authentication Program. In fact, to kind of give you a little behind the scenes of the authentication program, in the late 90s, there was a huge FBI sting that uncovered a bunch of fraudulent Major League memorabilia that people were selling. And so Major League Baseball went in-house. They developed their own program. They were originally using accountants, like from PricewaterhouseCoopers in the early days, but then about 5 years, this was in 2001, and about 5 years later, they brought in the security program into the authentication department. And so they started using off-duty police officers who would come out to the ball games and certify things under the direction of the teams. So that's where it kind of all began, but you just never know how a ball game is going to unfold. I mean, it's kind of like getting a little box with a bow on it, and you kind of unwrap it, and you never know what's going to happen. You have to anticipate. You have to be very proactive in what we do because I keep track of potential milestones, who's coming up on a hit, who's going to have a first plate appearance or whatever it might be. And I would say it's broken down into thirds. So about 1/3 of it, sometimes a little bit more, actually goes to the players because we want them to keep some of their items that are very important to their career. And then about 30% more of it stays with the team so we can put it in the Astros Hall of Fame and we can have it on display and people can actually come out to the ballpark and see it in person and it'll become permanent part of the Astros archives. And then about the other 30% is sold through a program called Astros Authentics, which normally at ball games, fans can go to the Astros Authentic store and buy game-used items from that day and from previous games, previous seasons at a store in center field. And we're doing things a little bit different, obviously, this year. We're online now with the auction site for the Astros Authentics, but we're still providing those items that fans really love to handle and see firsthand. And we're also just as a little side note too, we're actually taking some extra protocols. Everything that we authenticate from the field is actually put into locked storage, and we don't touch it for 48 hours. So before we move it to anywhere, if it goes online, if it goes shipped out to a fan, it's actually not touched by anybody for 2 full days. So it's a long process. It is. It's very detail oriented, and it's exciting. We get to put in new artifacts, basically every day. At the beginning of this season, we looked at the first pitch of the 2020 season. We're playing a 60-game shortened season, 30 games at home. And, we took the first home run hit of the 2020 season, which was Michael Brantley, and we kept that one. We have some jerseys that we just finished authenticating that what we call covert marking. Sometimes after a game, which we don't necessarily authenticate it, but we use a special procedure for covert marking a jersey, and then we track it for multiple games. And then when we decide to actually put a Major League hologram on it, then we connect the dots. The system in the Major League system connects the dots, and then when you look up the hologram number, you find all the games that particular jersey was used for. And we just pulled some uniforms that were used during the first homestand when the Astros opened up from some of the star players, and a couple of those are going to go on auction here real soon, and a couple of the other ones are going to stay in the archives. So it's really, this is something that I wish that, imagine if we had an authentication program like this back in 1965 or 1962.
Oh,
imagine all the artifacts that, if we had the frame of mind back then,
Yeah.
It actually has taken some training, some internal training to kind of get the feel for, hey, maybe we need to save this.
Yeah.
The clubhouse is always thinking about that.
What percentage does that make up? You've got ticket sales, you've got sponsorships, corporate sponsors, box suites. Is it a minor side of the income you have coming in, or is it larger? Give people an idea of what you bring in with all the merchandise, memorabilia, and things like that. The work that you do.
For me directly, it doesn't match anywhere near where ticket sales are. Ticket sales basically, for the most part, they pay the players' salaries. Yeah. If you look at what the salaries of the Astros are, the people coming out to the ballpark are basically paying that. And then you have other costs, so ticket sales are the number one thing. Mine is kind of more on the lower end. It is a good number that brings into the bottom line for the Astros, but you also have to consider all the goodwill that we're doing, because otherwise there wouldn't be any way for the fans to get their hands on these items. So this is a good way for fans, what I call it, to take home a part of the game. We've made pieces of the stadium available, so stadium seats. We actually, when we did the upgrade to the scoreboard back in 2011, we took down the original scoreboard that was up there for about 10 or 11 seasons, and I took a big section of it. It was about 2 by 2 foot sections, and we made those available to fans. So, it's really fun. It's for, people. Baseball has very, very hardcore fans. Mm-hmm. It's very nostalgic. People follow numbers. It's every day. It's not every other day. It's not once a week. Right now the Astros are playing right now.
Yeah.
And we were here playing yesterday afternoon, and so it's every day, and so it just gets into everybody's life.
And I love what you're doing now with the tarps, and then tell people too for an amount you can actually put yourself in the stadium seats. For those not familiar with that, some of y'all diehard fans, you already know what I'm talking about, but the ones that may not know, you can actually be at every game. For you upload your photo.
Yeah. So there's a program right now, and it's really a great program that a lot of the teams are doing across baseball. where you can actually have a cutout made of yourself, and it's put into the stands in the outfield. It's $100. You go online to Astros.com. There's a special link for it, and you take a picture. You're wearing your Astros gear. You know, make sure you're smiling. And some people have just actually they look like they're cheering for the Astros. Some of them are just smiling. Some of them have taken pictures of their pets. There's all sorts of cutouts in there, and we have I would say we're going on 5,000 of these cutouts in the ballpark. In fact, tonight there's still, the Astros are on the road, and the vendor who produces those for us, they're back in the ballpark, and they're putting in more cutouts. Now, the really cool thing is at the end of the season, everybody's going to get to take home these cutouts. Where there'll be a system that's announced by which you can pick them up, but you're also going to get one that's game used, because my team of authenticators, as we add these into the ballpark before a game, when they're added, we authenticate them. So there's a Major League hologram on these cutouts too.
Oh, wow.
So it is not just a cutout that that was in the stadium. You're going to be able to go online and really see that this is a game-used cutout certified by Major League Baseball.
That is so. We'll see them on eBay in 20 years, right? Or
I think there's a lot of stadium seats out there in the Houston area with Astrodome seats that have been sold.
But no more, right?
Park seats. No, probably not so much of the Astrodome seats.
Yeah.
But I think people will probably put these cutouts in their seats at home.
Oh, I think they will. Hey, real quick, shout out so we can get some engagement on social media, on Facebook and Instagram. Right now, hit the heart button if you actually have a pair of Astrodome seats, okay? Doesn't matter what color, but if you've got a pair of those seats, they were only available for a short amount of time, right, Mike? And they're not available anymore. You just can't buy them next week unless you buy them on the aftermarket. So think about that, right? So right now, give us some hearts. We got a couple coming in. That's good. Some more over here on Facebook. Want to make sure people are engaged in the conversation. And we're going to go and get started. Let's talk about the early years of baseball in Houston. Not so much professional, but let audience members know how far back, more or less, does baseball go in our area?
I mean, the first game on record here in Houston was at San Jacinto on San Jacinto Day, April 21st, 1867.
Wow.
It was between the Houston Stonewalls and the Galveston Robert E. Lees. And, they said that the run differential was like 30 or 35 runs. Like, there's not an accurate score. Some say it was 35-2, some were 38-1 or whatever it was. But it was a huge run differential, and that was really what's considered the first recorded game in Houston history. But the Texas League came around in 1888. And Houston entered it as the Houston Babies, which later became the Houston Buffs, who have just a glorious legacy here in Houston, who played in and around the downtown area,
so
West End Park.
Most people are going to know the Houston Buffs, right? I mean, that's really where kind of we think about baseball on a commercial standpoint. Of course, you mentioned earlier it's a horrible photo, sorry, but they did play out in West End Field, and there it is. You get an idea of where. Tell people out there where West End Baseball Field is located.
Well, I'm willing to bet that a lot of people don't know exactly. They probably have driven over the home plate area hundreds of times if you're a native Houstonian, because if you're riding on the I-45 heading north or south, right around where Dallas Street is, as you come around the Cullen Center and Allen Center, that little dip that goes down underneath Dallas, as you come back up, that's where home plate was. It was underneath the freeway. And the substation, the power station that's over there by 1600 Smith Street and the Cullen Center, that was left field. And the Whitehall, or I'm not sure if it's the Whitehall Hotel anymore, but that area.
It's back. It was Royal Sonesta. Now it's back to Whitehall.
Okay,
so
all right.
My friends that got married there in the 70s are always like, oh, it's back. It's the Whitehall now. So keep going.
So that was center field. And so that's where West End Park was. And it was a very historic field. It was an old wooden kind of rickety ballpark. You could seat about 200 people. It was there for a very, very long time. There were a lot of football games that were played there, Negro League games that came into town. The Houston Buffs played there. Texas A&M, UT was there as well. It was a very historic ballpark. But then they moved in 1928 to Buff Stadium, which is probably the more well-known of the ballparks. Fred Ankerman, who was the owner in the early years of the Houston Buffs, he was a guy who formed a Houston City League. And you got to imagine a Houston that does not have 99, it doesn't have Beltway 8, it's far before Loop 610 was even under design. You have the regions around Houston, Conroe, Katy. It's the same areas that we know today. But back in those years, it was a road trip, right? You couldn't get there as fast as you can today. So the Houston City League used to travel in and around the area and play these seasons. And Fred Ankerman was the guy who kind of put all that together, and then he became the owner of the Houston Buffs for many years. And then Alan Russell, who was a parking attendant at Buff Stadium working for Ankerman, he actually worked his way up and became the president owner of the Buffs later on. And the Buffs just have a very colorful history here in Houston. And for many years, if you went over to the Finger Furniture store and you saw the Houston Baseball Museum, me as a kid, I used to get hot chocolate in that little museum that they had as my parents went over and bought furniture.
And then let people know where we're at right now. We're obviously looking at 45 South, veering southwest on the side over there, right? Or it's there, and then it's home plate was, like you mentioned earlier.
What you're looking at
There's
there,
the railroad.
actually, I believe that's Cullen.
Uh-huh.
So that's Cullen. 45
right here.
45 would be on the bottom, kind of out of frame on this picture. And that's Buff Stadium, and you see those medallions with the orange and brown colors of the buffalo.
You'll have some of those, right?
No, we don't. We have access to a duplicate, a really nice duplicate.
Are all the originals gone, or do we know if anybody?
No, there are some out there, and part of what I do is try to acquire some of these items for the team, and we actually the Astros. A few years ago, we actually purchased much of that collection from the Finger family, and we gave it a home at Minute Maid Park. So that if you remember seeing that home plate that was at Finger Furniture, it is now at Minute Maid Park, and it is one of the heaviest things. I mean, you remember it's encased in concrete and had this plaque around it, and we took it from the store and brought it over. We needed a huge heavy duty forklift to put it into the warehouse at Minute Maid Park, and I want to put it on permanent display at some point. But here tonight, I actually brought some of the a couple of Dizzy Dean's cleats from 1931. Hall of Famer Dizzy Dean, who came through and played with the Houston Buffs.
And these are prizes for later on?
Exactly, yeah. So somebody is going to wind up.
No, we're kidding. He'll get fired and I'll get killed. But I just love the little Spanish motif they added on later on. Talk a little bit about just the overall team. So they were popular. They lasted for how long? When did they stop?
Well, the Houston Buffs history, essentially, as the Houston Buffs, it ends with the emergence of the Colt 45s. Because in baseball, you have what you call baseball territories. You have a minor league territory, you have a major league territory. And in order for Houston to go to major league status, if it was going to be through a team that was going to transfer to Houston, which they tried to do in the 50s, they tried to get the St. Louis Browns and a few other teams to move to Houston, or if it was going to be a brand new team, which is what we wound up with here in Houston, they had to acquire the territorial rights to Houston to play here. Mm-hmm. So the Houston Buffs were that team. And so the Houston Sports Association formed in the 50s, and they had to acquire those rights. Now, it could have been somebody else, but they're the ones who got it together, George Kirksey and Craig Cullinan, the names that we are very, very accustomed to hearing. Kirksey was a promotions guy, a PR guy here in Houston, a sports writer, a very successful guy, kind of a guy that spent a lot of time to himself, and he got together with Craig Cullinan, who was the heir to the Texaco company, and they really hammered out through the conference rooms of Houston all these corporations to try to get support for bringing Major League Baseball, so that when they were successful, the Houston Sports Association, which were the owners of the Colt 45s, they had to not only purchase the territorial rights of the Houston Buffs, but actually purchase the Buffs themselves. And so the Buffs actually were under the ownership of the Major League Club beginning in 1962, and then they were moved to Oklahoma City. So they went from becoming from the Houston Buffs all these years and decades here. They were then moved to Oklahoma City, where they became the 89ers. And they were owned by the franchise up and through 1972, and then they became minor league teams kind of change ownership, but Houston kept them for a good 10 years.
And this is great. We just got a chime in from Inez Lott, whose father, H.A. Lott, general contractor. So, I mean, what's great about what you do is you just have a whole series of people that love to tell their stories about early Astros baseball history, or that their family was involved in some capacity, whether it's on the construction side, and we're going to talk about in a second, So it's really, really neat. So you mentioned earlier some of the key players. We'll talk about them. Of course, Ari Bob Smith, there he is front and center. Judge Roy Hoffines. You've got Greg Kirksey over there. Craig Cullinan. So really, those are the early four gentlemen who kind of, really gave us what we think of nowadays the Colt 45s, the one that kind of put it in motion. Obviously, George Kirksey starts the ball rolling with getting his buddies to get involved, gets Craig Cullinan involved, and gets Ari Bob Smith involved, and gets Hoffines involved. And then these are, of course, we asked this question on our Instagram and our Facebook, who are these men and why are they packing heat? So Mike Acosta, Astros Houston historian, tell us, who are these folks and why are they packing heat?
That is the Colt 45s going on a road trip in 1962 with Harry Kraft over here, the manager of the team on the far left, and Bob Aspermani, who was in the expansion draft and a very popular player for third base for the Colt 45s and Astros in the 60s. And there's Turk Farrell in there and a lot of familiar faces as you go back up that plane. They actually really didn't like that. That was something that the Colt 45s, was tied to the old Houston, the old West, and that was one of the reasons why they actually went to the Houston Astros. But the Colt 45s in the very beginning, a insurance salesman here in Houston named William Nieder, had the winning submission for a name to team contest, and they became the Houston Colt 45s at the beginning. And Hoffines, as the genius and the marketing and branding guy that he is, he actually didn't like the name that much, but he took it and ran with it and asked the guys to wear these Western suits and these really nice, look at this,
this
old
is
baseball style. Yeah.
Roy Hoffines, Judge Hoffines, never missing a beat to market. And you can just see right there, look at the costumes we showed you earlier. And you can also, this is a chance to see Colt Stadium. It wasn't very fancy. Why would it not so fancy, not so many frills in this particular? It's a basic stadium, but you said it best. It's
a temporary stadium. It was built by a scaffolding companies and Safeway Scaffolds here in Houston. I'm not sure if they're still around, but they put up this temporary stadium on the north end of what became the Astrodome parking lot, and they were, Hoffines was quick to point out that this ballpark actually sat more than many of the major league stadiums. Now, one of the things that I like to always point out with this ballpark, it was very nice. It was very well done. They had the Fast Draw Club on the first base side, which was a season ticket holder, air-conditioned area. It was really, really nice. It looked like this Old West saloon type of setup. It was very, very nice. But the whole stadium, if you look at it, there's no canopy. There's no cover. There's no shade. And the seats out there, they're metal. They're metal folding chairs. They're different colors, and which help people find their seats. The color of the ticket to the color of the seat, but they were metal.
Yeah, and one thing that hasn't changed all these years is the heat in Houston, and those chairs are hot. So look at that. Those are the photos he's talking about. Let's just talk a little bit about the man himself. This is someone who you certainly look up to and have learned a lot about personally, and you're close to the family. Deanie Hoffines, and and I know Fred's not as involved as he is, and I think Mary Frances. I got a chance to hang out with her. We did a really nice tribute to the 100th anniversary of Judge Hoffines in 2012 to celebrate his 100th anniversary of his birth. But talk a little bit about Judge Roy Hoffines.
Well, Hoffines, and like you said, I've been really fortunate to, part of what I love about what I do is I get to meet the people who were there, or the people who are still with us that were there, or their descendants. I really, we always can figure out what, in baseball, what the team did, what players did. That's in box scores. We can find that. We find it in old magazines and such. But I'd like knowing the human aspect, what their experiences were, what their challenges were, how they dealt with adversity, and how they plowed through challenging times to really be successful. And so the Hoffines family has been very gracious. Deanie Hoffines and I are great friends. Din Mann, who is the grandson of Roy Hoffines and Deanie's son, he and I are good friends as well. And they've just been a really great resource in just talking and just kind of hanging out. and you know,
and all the kids are still alive. You know,
they are. Yes,
Roy Jr. is over in California.
Yeah, I've met all of
Houston.
them. Yeah, I met all of them back. I started working for the Astros in 1999, and that was a very. It was almost meant to be because that was the last year we were in the Astrodome, so we were doing a lot of retrospect type of events. And the last regular season game, we had the entire Hoffines family out there. Mary Frances, Roy Jr., Fred Hoffines, Deanie Hoffines, they were all out there. The Ari Bob Smith family was there as well. I met Craig Cullinan that day as well.
Speaking of,
and there she is right there kissing her dad.
That's young Deanie, and then of course her mom, little Deanie, and her mom is also Deanie too. And then you have Roy Jr. and you've got Fred over there, a future mayor of Houston, with their dad at the time that he was mayor of Houston as well. And people don't realize that. He's just a remarkable, person. I mean, here he is, at age 19 being a lawyer, age 22 being a state legislator, age 24 becoming Harris County judge, the youngest man in the nation to hold that kind of an office with that kind of power. So, Roy Hoffines, as I've always said in my lectures, he's the can-do kid. I mean, when people say he can't do something, he proves them wrong, and he did the same thing with the next feat we're going to talk about, one of the wonders of the world here. But he's an amazing person individually, and then he always had a flair for, just the dramatic. I mean, and you'll touch on a little bit of that as we talk about, there it is, for example. His car collection. When they had to liquidate his estate, and there were times where he had tough times, of course. In 1970, he suffered a stroke. And just wasn't the same after that, in a wheelchair, and just a very different person. But just a character, one of those classic Houston and Texan kind of characters.
He was always promoting Houston.
Yeah.
And one of the things that I think that I think it's out there, and we're talking more about the baseball aspect, but I think one of the greatest legacies, when we talk about the Astrodome, which is it's the most popular legacy that Hoffines had, but one of the big legacies that he had was that he actually, under his direction, pretty much integrated Houston overnight and removed all the signs that were in restaurants and such here in downtown. And things changed overnight and very quietly and very peacefully, unlike some of the other southern states that were seen in that time. So I think that that's something that probably deserves a little bit more attention and a little bit more talking about than we used to. Now, we're talking about baseball tonight, but that's a great legacy.
Well, it's timely, actually, Mike. You bring it up, and it's a good point. It's absolutely timely, and we forget about these individuals in Houston, and the business community here, too. They got on board with Roy Hoffines. He said, we're going to be quiet about this, and the media is not going to cover it, and it just kind of happened. And the Astrodome is known for that, being one of the largest integrated public spaces. And there he's just having a good time with Mary Frances over at the in the Celestial Suites up there. That's Mary Frances and Judge with a robe on. And we won't talk too much. We can do a whole separate talk about Astroworld, but I just want people to see that it was a family business. Deanie was in charge of public relations and marketing for the Astroworld, Astrodomain complex. Fred was also involved. Roy, not so much, but just kind of interesting that here they are dreaming big. Here he is at the opening in June of 1968, and really just Astroworld would go on to be something we all think about and remember when it comes to their overall Astrodome experience. Let's talk about this because you're passionate. You're on the board of the Astrodome Conservancy, and you have a vision for it. And we're going to get to a little bit later on how much you actually love the dome. I don't want you to give it away because if you don't know Mike Acosta's passion for the Astrodome itself, you will by the end of this video. But let's talk about the eighth wonder of the world, because this structure touches people's hearts in many different ways, not just sports fans, but let's just talk about it. Here it is.
Look at it. It's just, to begin with, it's a very elegant, it's a very beautiful looking structure. The shape of it, the triangles, the curves, just the way it's put together. It's a nice looking, there's this real nice skeletal system that's underneath the shell, this mid-century looking screen that's on the outside with the star columns. And I don't think a lot of people even know that those columns that are on the outside, you see them under construction right there, they're rising in that picture, but those are actually called star columns, part of the architecture of the building, and it's kind of very subtle, but that type of design was kind of carried out through different architectural elements of the building.
Of course, Ari Bob Smith, and you have, just kind of showcasing and showing off the dome itself. Those mini models, those little models of the dome, they were significant, right? Because you had something that never been done before, and seeing is believing. So you kind of had to have, this concept, proven at least in model form.
Yeah, and then the picture right before this, you have Walter O'Malley, who's on the left right there.
Oh, yeah.
He was the owner of the Dodgers. Craig Cullinan. right there to the left of O'Malley, and then Gabe Paul is looking across right there, who's he was very short-lived general manager of the Astros, or the Colt 45s. He's only around for like 6 months, and then he just flat up and quit. It was some personality differences between him and Hoffines, and then Ari Bob Smith there. This was part of what was called the Rain or Shine Tour. That they went out to California, the Houston Sports Association.
Oh, yeah.
They took a bunch of politicians and people who were really going to get this franchise activated. They took one of the early models of the Astrodome. This was one of the concept models. It looks a little bit different in the way that the dome actually came out, but they took it to California. They wanted to see how because baseball had just moved out west from New York to California.
Yeah,
so now we had the Los
Mississippi.
Angeles Dodgers and San Francisco Giants, who had both moved from New York and Brooklyn. They wanted to see how they did it, how they put together a stadium, and then they took their vision out there to show them what they wanted to do in Houston. So it was a really cool deal that they did there in 1960. And then this is a groundbreaking January 3rd, 1962.
And look how we do it in Houston, Texas. How do we do it, Mike?
Well, they fired Colt 45 pistols into the ground. And, this was a really great
Ari
day.
Bob Smith over there. You've got Judge Roy Hoffines with 2, because he just can't have 1, right? He's the man.
Well, no, that's actually County Judge Bill Elliott.
This is Bill Elliott over
That's
here.
Bill Elliott right there. You want to know something? Is
where's
that
Hoffines at? Tell us.
Hoffines is nowhere in these. I've never seen a
Why?
picture of Hoffines in any of these groundbreaking pictures.
Because they're literally books and magazines that have this listed as Roy Hoffines, and it's because his head is down, you can't tell, and you would assume because of the guns.
Yeah.
But and the fact that Roy Hoffines is not in the photo, that's a very interesting question. Yeah. So do we know what the answer is?
Well, I actually talked to Deanie Hoffines about that a few months ago. We were on the phone and we had a long discussion about different things.
We see Squatty Lyons and we see.
Well, you know what her answer was? She said that he was on that day.
Maybe,
he was all over the place.
Yeah, I know
he was just trying to get the event going. I mean, he was very hands-on in everything that he did. And so she says, by no doubt, he was just behind the scenes making sure that the next group of people that were up there. Now, one of the pictures that is very rarely
has some leaders.
Yeah, has some African-American leaders,
leaders.
Quentin Meese.
Yeah.
And no doubt that he was probably rounding those guys up.
Oh,
because
yeah.
in this picture here, you see the chief
there,
guys. Yeah, this is Harris County,
yeah.
commissioners and county judge and the ownership.
People are often reminded that it's called the Harris County Dome Stadium officially. It is not the Astrodome to some. Especially on paper. But so there, for clarification, that is not Roy Hoffines. That is Judge Bill Elliott. So we need to all know that. Of course, Squatty Lyons, Kyle Chapman, Craig Cullinan, so the whole team over there. But Roy Hoffines nowhere to be found. So this is great. You're getting good content, good information here. We're debunking some rumors, and that's very helpful. And we, of course, all recognize Ari Bob Smith in the front. Really, and he doesn't get a lot of credit in some cases either, because he's overshadowed by Hoffines. And of course, talk a little bit about their falling out, because Ari Bob Smith, the largest property owner in Harris County, he owns more land than anybody else, mostly for cattle grazing. He's a remarkable individual. He's involved in a variety of civic boards. And I love the fact that his, great grandson, Mason Hunt, is working on a book and kind of, focusing on his legacy, which is really important because there isn't much about Ari Bob Smith in regards to that. And the foundation's still active. You might know the Vivian Smith Foundation. They're out there doing great things. But talk about they're coming together and they're falling out. I mean, they're coming together, of course, with the Smith Hoffine Shopping City,
Sure.
and then of course they're falling out.
Yeah, I mean, Hoffines and Smith were friends for many, many years. And they worked on a lot of projects together. As you said, Smith was the largest landowner in Houston for many, many years. In fact, the metro train that goes down by NRG Park, the stop right before that is still called the Smithlands. And I don't think anybody knows why, but it's in honor of Ari Bob Smith and all that land that he owned back there where a lot of the medical center rose. But Hoffines and Smith, they worked really close. When George Kirksey and Craig Cullinan were working on getting a franchise here in Houston, Ari Bob Smith told those two guys, look, if you really want this organization, the Houston Sports Association, to be successful, if you really, really want to get baseball here and you want to get a stadium going, you have to bring in Roy Hoffines, because he was the county judge and the mayor, and he was used to working on large civic projects, and he was a showman, he was a salesman, he thought of everything, brand and marketing, the whole thing. He was ahead of his time. So he was brought in to be the person who would take charge of the stadium project. And like you said, they were working on a shopping center that was going to be down near where today's Galleria is.
Well, it's on Roy Hoffines' farm on
Yeah,
Yorktown, which
yeah.
is so cool because he had that whole tract of land. This is on the southern side it's Westheimer, northern side you've got Bering, you've got Yorktown, and it would have. And Deanie tells the story great, but that was their farm. That's where they would go and relax on the weekends, and in some cases live there too. But just needed that happen. By the way, you have Barefoot Days on Instagram says, what about Ari Bob Smith? You can't talk about Roy Hoffines without Ari Bob Smith. Ari Bob Smith also integrated Houston and worked closely, which he did. Again, he was very powerful because he was involved civically, right?
Yeah.
Board of Commerce, and different nonprofit organizations. And
I think what you also have to consider too is two different personalities. You're looking at Ari Bob Smith, kind of the straight-laced, old-school Texas businessman, and Roy Hoffines, the showman, the guy who's the can-do, the we can get it done spirit, the guy who was not afraid to get out there in front of everybody and really kind of push a vision to really show people what the future would bring. So that's kind of what you're looking at as well. If you look at opening night at the Astrodome, there are some pictures you might have seen before where Roy Hoffines and some of his family members, they're in that private suite that used to be on the 7th floor. It was a private quarters. It was one of the first things that was completed in the Astrodome when they started putting the finishes in the building. And it had a private box, like a skybox, no stadium seats, but had a private elevator that went up there. And the President of the United States, Lyndon Johnson, attended that first game and sat up there. Now, at the same time, Ari Bob Smith and Vivian Smith were down in their field box seats, down near home plate, where a lot of the other dignitaries were. Meanwhile, Hoffines was attending to special guests up in the suite, and there was nothing wrong with that. But that was probably one of the little things, where I read, Vivian Smith in an interview kind of mentioned that. And there was just these little things that were going, and Hoffines kind of took it upon himself. I think, what some people would consider maybe he took it too far, but I don't think so. I mean, I think it's just two personalities. I think Hoffines had a definite vision for the Astrodome, what it was going to become, the empire that it was going to be. He wanted to build the amusement park, Astro World. He wanted to build the hotels. He wanted to make the Astrodome become the Astro Domain, where people, and I think a lot of people out there that came in from out of town, I've heard many times. Now, I grew up in Houston, so we would just go to Astro World to go to the Astros games or whatever. But people would come to Houston as a destination, almost like a Disney World type of experience, where they would stay at the Astro World Hotel, spend an entire day at Astro World, and then go watch a Sunday afternoon ball game in the Astrodome and enjoy a whole weekend, or maybe spend a few days out in Houston at the Astro Domain, and you could stay in one place. And that was a grand vision that Hoffines had, and it just came down to where literally Ari Bob Smith said, hey, this is not going to. This is different visions. You buy me out, or I buy you out. And I don't think that Smith in the very beginning felt that Hoffines was going to be able to buy him out.
Oh, yeah.
But Hoffines put the capital together, and he did it.
And it was difficult for Hoffines. He had to mortgage and sell a lot of things that were important to him, a lot of properties that he had, and he made it happen, though. Let's move on to, and this is a great photo, too. This is the county commissioners over there getting fitted for some chairs, right? In the shadow of the dome. I mean, just a really iconic photo. A lot of engineers out there, a lot of architects, just really have this building in a high regard. So, and we're going to go a little bit over, so forgive us on that. Mike Acosta is full of so much great Astros history knowledge, and we've got some prizes, so do not leave the show because we're going to go a little bit over, but you're going to benefit because you're going to get more content. So stay tuned for that, and if you were on Instagram, that feed is ended, so we're now on to the Facebook-only feed, so just know that. Tell your Instagram friends. Well, let's zip through a couple of these, okay? Let's talk about the start of the season itself, playing in the dome. We now have the dome built. We'll go forward. You can see the Colt 45 helmets on there as they're in inside the dome itself. So talk about the Astrodome games that were in there.
So the beginning of the Astrodome and the Houston Astros name, the Colt 45 Firearms Company wanted some of the royalties.
Always.
They got, in the beginning they thought it was a great idea, but then I think the Colt 45s did such a good job at becoming popular and marketing themselves that
They want their cut.
they wanted a cut. And so Hoffines didn't want anything to take any attention away from the Dome, so they changed the name. They had an artist kind of come up with 24, 25 different logos over the course of the 1964 season, and they emerged with the Houston Astros. In fact, Alan Shepard, the astronaut, was kind of the final decision maker. They asked him, what do you think? We're thinking of Houston Stars. We're thinking of the Houston Astros. And he said Astros. I mean, that's short for astronauts right there. So they just very quickly went with that. This is a fabulous shot right here.
Team, right?
Well, the Stars,
Soccer
yeah,
team,
they
the
actually,
Hopline zone,
they actually, the Stars name did
Yeah,
play
was
in
the
the
extra
Astrodome,
one.
but it was the soccer team.
Yeah.
That was kind of a short-lived soccer team, but in the '60s, they.
But he probably had the name left over from that, right? He's like,
I'm sure.
I'm going to recycle this name. What a great
Yeah.
name, the Stars. So there it is. There's the inside of the Astrodome. What's so sad is that many people that are watching this video, even now and even later on, that are younger, when did they lose their certificate of occupancy? When can people no longer go inside the dome?
That was around, I want to say
12?
2008 or 2009 or so.
Sounds about right.
It was mainly because the fire alarm system, right? It wasn't.
Got to get people out of there in case there's
it
something
wasn't
wrong.
kept up to date. That was the main reason.
So you may, and some of y'all might have gotten lucky because our awesome judge Ed Emmett allowed people to go inside the dome for the 50th anniversary and then go inside the dome also earlier, I believe, and it was a big deal. I mean, we thought it was going to be like 15,000 people, and it ends up being like 50,000 or something like that. Probably not, but it was a lot.
It
of
was
folks.
several thousand. I mean, people stayed in line. I was inside on the floor to the end. Yeah, we were inside.
Yeah.
We had some items on display, and we were showing people things down in the field. And
it was a big deal.
It was really, really something. I mean, and what was really interesting
the love
is
for the space.
Yeah, and this was the first time that people were able to come into the building, and you kind of saw how the social media aspect took over. I mean, everybody was holding their phones up, taking pictures of the roof. People who had never seen it before, and they were just simply amazed, just as amazed as they were in '65.
Yeah, look at that. And then, of course, this is Harold Israel's photos, some awesome ones from Gold Photo earlier. And then here it is. So what are we looking at here?
Well, this is Mother's Day in the Astrodome, and those are the Spacettes. That's a gold and blue outfit. The Spacettes were the usherettes. They were called Triggerettes at the Colt Stadium, and then they became the Spacettes in the Astrodome. And then some of the...
And Evelyn Norton Anderson,
yes.
Let's talk a little bit about her because this is part of the special collection that is available. And she is just phenomenal because she is somebody who really took Roy Hoffines' just energy and just portrayed it in some of these outfits that you're going to see. So they really are, and there's the actual outcome of them. And I think it's great that Din Man owns so many of the helmets, right? He bought those at the auction.
Yeah, he did. I have a couple myself, too. I love them.
Oh, that's awesome.
They're awesome.
Just the fact that he has them is so
And that's Mary Frances Hoffines.
There you go.
Yeah.
There she is,
She's
and the outfit
modeling
makes sense.
the suit there, yeah. Oh, look.
Now, not the same person. Okay,
No.
we just want to show you the outfit itself as it originally appeared. That's a good close-up shot. You can go in and check that out. And then now talk about the person on the photo on the right over here, because you had a pleasure to meet her.
Yeah, and I'm trying, you put me on the spot. I'm trying to remember her name.
I forgot her name too.
I have her
married
information.
to a doctor, but
she is actually.
Yeah, and she lives in the Museum District area,
Yeah.
but I got to interview her as well, and a name escapes me also, but she has the outfit, and she fits in it, and she's beautiful, and so elegant, and it was so kind of her to show up, and I think she made the Chronicle, and she made a bunch of different, splash in the news, because really she brought back this awesome energy about the Astrodome. Now, let's talk about the space itself, because there were lots of different areas in the Astrodome as well, and the Astrodome's 7th floor and the floors the Hoffines had specifically often get very confused with the Celestial Suites.
That's correct.
And they're not the same, but they're similar. So we'll kind of go over this is just some of the dining area options that you had. This would not have been for the VIP Skybox folks, but they could have come down here for a hot dog or something.
This is the previous picture was the Countdown Cafe, which was right behind home plate. This area later became the season ticket office. But this was a cafeteria where if you were entering at the old Murworth gate, the west gate, people would come in. There's usually a long line of people to go into. It's kind of cafeteria style
And it's got
seating.
this kind of Spartan theme to it
Yeah.
also, this gladiator theme.
It was a gladiator theme. That was the thing. Throughout the Astrodome, everything was themed. It was branded.
Even the tables have just this kind of, motif on them.
Yep.
And they're just basic, Formica tables. And then you've got this space over here as well.
Yeah, this is the Dome Skeller.
Yeah.
This is below. This right here is
like a beer garden.
This is at the level of the playing field. This picture here is towards the right field corner, and if you look in the towards the far right there, that little fenced area, that's actually the motor that moved the field level seats on the first base side. The chain and pulley system.
Space.
That was the machine. So if you were down there,
you
could actually see it. Well, they wouldn't move it with people in the building, but you could see it there, and that was pretty cool. This is the Astrodome Club. This was the longest bar in Texas, 150 feet long.
Oh yeah.
And it was just very regal. Membership, season ticket holders. Everybody had, just like the SpaceX and the Earthmen who manned the field. There were people who had special uniforms and costumes that they wore in this area. And this space was over on the third base side. It later became the Columbia Star Suites in the 80s, in the late 80s, right around 1988. And then this is a great picture.
It's a good photo because you're seeing Astroworld over here, and then you're seeing the Astro Hall over here, right? And this is gone now. It sadly was demolished. That new structure is, I think, over where we're at over here.
Yeah, you have Astro Arena was built here. The NRG Center's down here. NRG Stadium is over here, and now this is parking, where the Astro Hall is shown here with the candy stripe roof. That for a while there, the Astros, Hoffines was the owner of the Ringling Brothers Circus.
Absolutely.
And so they actually had an idea. While they're going to have the circus inside the Astro Hall, let's make it look like a circus tent.
That's great. Well, he grew up dirt poor in Beaumont, Texas, and always wanted to have the circus, and he ends up buying Ring the Brothers and Barnabilla Circus. And of course, this is pre the renovation we'll talk about a little later on. There's the Astro Domain Hotel itself, and this is all pasture. It's just all, Loop 610, of course. You can actually see Colt Stadium on the north over here, as Mike Acosta talked about earlier. And if you're just joining us now, once again, with Mike Acosta, Houston's Astros historian and also authentication manager for the Houston Astros Ball Club, and we are excited to talk about just the Astrodome itself. Now, this character over here was also involved in the Astrodome itself, and talk about kind of his, because, it's one thing to have a baseball franchise occupy the space, but that's not going to be a year-round commitment. And Hoffines knew he had to fill it up.
Yeah.
So talk about who he partnered up with as well.
So there you go. So it's a name, very synonymous with Houston sports history, one way or the other.
Good or bad.
Good or bad. And that's Bud Adams, KS Bud Adams. And
There
he was
is.
actually one of the original stockholders in the Houston Sports Association. Yeah. And
Steve Griffin, MrHoustonHistory.com asked us to mention that too.
Yeah,
he was very clear about that. Make sure you mention, Bud Adams' involvement in that. But there he is. I love how they're switching roles, obviously.
Yeah.
Kind of neat. And then, of course, the mini dome itself. There's the stadium itself that we talked about earlier, both stadiums. And by the way, we do want to have a shout out to George Ayers, who is the brother of Allison Ayers Bell with the Heritage Society. So he's tuning in also. So thanks so much, George, for tuning in. There's the scoreboard. Now, behind the scoreboard was something really special. Tell people what was behind the scoreboard that people don't realize, especially if you were born after 1987.
Sure. So in right field, Hoffines built up on the 7th floor, which is the level where the upper deck is, a private suite. And then in 1968, they expanded that. The Astros wanted to bring in one of the political conventions to Houston. They were Republican or Democratic convention. They were trying to get one here in Houston. They weren't successful, but Hoffines was very good friends with Lyndon Johnson, and so he built this presidential
He was his
suite.
first campaign manager.
Yeah, he was
LBJ's
very
first
close.
campaign manager. They go back
They had been, by this time they had been friends for close to 30 some odd years. And so they built this this private suite at the cost. This didn't come in from the budget from the county or anything. Mm-hmm. The Astros actually footed the bill to put in all these extras. They actually paid for
Hoffines got them to.
Yeah,
Isn't
the
that
scoreboard.
Yeah.
All of that stuff, all the extras
But
in the
he used
Astrodome.
it, George,
Yeah, they put that in there. And so this is the presidential suite, which was there on the floor. And some of this, you can see some of the light coming in because it's exposed to the opening into the stadium arena part of the Astrodome. But some of the other area, like this kind of living room area, was behind the scoreboard. Mm-hmm. And it was done like that on purpose. So that way some of the presidential suite was not visible from the stadium area. It was a tease. It was a security thing too. And they actually had, there's one, I don't know if we have that image, but there's one image where you can actually see the red phone. They had permission to put an actual red phone in this presidential suite. Now the presidential suite was just one part of this level, this multi-level
This is massive square
apartment.
footage we're talking about. That scoreboard was huge.
Yeah, yeah. So
largest in the world at the time.
this area here, I mean, it
had
went
a chapel,
from
and then you
level,
also had a bowling alley.
We actually have that Astro Bowl sign on
love
display. It's on display at Minute Maid Park.
I love that.
now.
And then this is just fun. He had his own private barber, area in there too. And then look at this billiard room because it has a really cool feature. And if you were kind of on the other side of the dome, you wouldn't really notice that little.
No, if you remember, if you went to the Astrodome and as a kid or whatever, or as an adult, and you kind of remember seeing all these little oddly shaped windows,
purpose.
There was a purpose for that. That's where all this Wonderland. Now this next picture
is not. This is a
that's
different. Yeah,
correct. This is not at the Astrodome. This is part of the Celestial Suite over at the old Astroworld Hotel, which is at the corner of Kirby and 610. And it is the penthouse suite. It's a very large penthouse.
Remarkably, it's because, I went up there several times and took some folks up there because I knew the general manager, and then you've, of course, been up there as well. But, this is a treat because it still looks like 1968.
It does.
I mean,
it's a time capsule.
It's absolutely a time capsule. And when I was talking to Jerry, he was like, well, we don't know what to do with it. Are we gonna take it apart? Are we gonna, and he just didn't know. And now they can't use it as much because the elevator, there's no the bubble elevator that Hoffein's built on the side of it doesn't work, right? So now you can't really bring people up there, ADA. But it's awesome. It is absolutely a treat. Now, we move out of the Astrodome, and because we're getting close on time, and then we go into another piece of Houston history. Talk about where you guys are at now.
Well, now we're at the 1911 Union Station, Texas and Crawford, where Minute Maid Park sits, and this whole site is very interesting, and this is one of the later photos. I'm not sure particularly what year that was, but it was one of the later photos.
Well, and God bless the renovation because you took something that, this was it was built in 1911, and it becomes a commuter rail line until 1974, and then it sits dormant until about 1994, 96 when you guys start the process of renovating it, and it becomes what we know today as Minute Maid Ballpark. But what did it used to be called for those folks who are a little new school?
Originally, this project was called the Ballpark at Union Station for quite a while, and then it became. We sold the naming rights. The Astros sold the naming rights, which really became commonplace in the mid to late '90s, and of course we've seen it over the past couple of decades, where it's a large revenue center. As much as we love names like Jack Murphy Stadium or that type of thing, naming rights have become a big revenue generator as player salaries escalate for teams. So we went from Enron Field back to Astros Field for a couple of months, and then we went to Minute Maid Park, and we've been with Minute Maid ever since June of 2002. And it's been a really nice ball. In fact, I think the ballpark today, Minute Maid Park, is even more beautiful today than it was when we first opened. I mean, we have a lot more interactive areas that we've added over the past few years and under certain renovations, and that's part of keeping the ballpark relevant too. Mm-hmm. I mean, you think about the Texas Rangers; they just moved out of a stadium that was like 25 years old, and we're celebrating 20 years in Minute Maid Park, and we've made a longer term commitment. We've extended the lease through 2050. Originally the original lease was a 30-year lease from 2000 through the 2029 season. But in recent couple of years ago,
we're in.
He has committed to putting capital improvements into the ballpark. So you see all these really nice renovations that have taken place around Minute Maid Park to keep it a very modern facility.
Okay, so for those of you who are not familiar, Mike Acosta has I mean, this is like a collection of these amazing models. Okay, that's not one of your models, of course. Right?
It is. That's
look how realistic that looks, by the way. So that's one of his models. It reminds me of the original ones. You even had that plaque. Is the plaque original or the plaque?
I had it made.
Okay, but similar.
Yeah, it's from the plaque. It's actually from the graphics, the same graphics.
Because you'll still have some of the mini models, correct? Does any of them survive?
We have, in the Astros collection, we have the old folding traveling model that Hoffein's used to take. Yeah, the briefcase.
Wow.
It's the Astro Domain, so it shows the dome, the Astro Hall, and then we also have the Astro World part. So, I mean, it's a huge tabletop model.
Yeah.
And we put it on display at the Dome Coming a couple of years ago for everybody to see. But these models here, these are about... this is these are renovation models.
You did these.
Yeah, I did.
I mean, this is crazy. This
Yeah.
is amazing. That like the detail work is wonderful,
Well,
but just your passion for the dome, because every square inch literally scaled down and then scaled back up. And these were some ideas that you had, right?
Well, what I wanted to do is, what really worked for the Astrodome to get it built was that Huffines had models made. He wanted to show people what the vision was, and so that's a model that I'm currently working on right now that shows the 1965 Astrodome. And baseball season kind of gets in the way, so I haven't finished it yet, but. That's kind of where it stands right now.
Is that real dirt?
So actually, the dirt in that model is from the Astrodome.
Oh,
yeah,
yes.
It actually is dirt. It's dirt from the pitching mound.
Love it.
Yeah, from the
orange,
Astrodome. Yeah. So that is dirt mixed with some glue and kind of a clay type of thing. So yeah, and then this right here. So this is a renovation model, and some of the models that you saw there. I wanted to build these models to kind of show people behind the scenes. I'm working on a pretty extensive, elaborate design and proposals for the Astrodome in the future.
And you're doing other stuff too, because God bless Mike Acosta. He is out there really preserving Astros baseball history in a big way. Talk about this newest opportunity that you're doing with the dome.
So this is the Astros Hall of Fame at Minute Maid Park, which is in the alleyway from left field to center field. And this is these are two of the new cabinets that we converted over for 2020. Now we haven't. If you want to see them, you can come out and take a tour of the ballpark because we don't have fans in the park for games right now, but people can see them. We're celebrating the 20th anniversary of Minute Maid Park, so we have a few cabinets that kind of showcase artifacts. If you look on the picture on the left, I mean, you see kind of that cannonball that's down there in the bottom. These are artifacts that were excavated from the Minute Maid Park site when they were digging the hole for, before it was a train station, that was a neighborhood. And so, there was pistols and cannonballs and toys and doorknobs that were found under the ground.
Horseshoes because of Stewart and Stevenson, right?
Yeah.
The old 1902,
So all of those items that you see there are from the excavation. And then, of course, the uniform is an Octavio Dotel pinstripe uniform, and he was the first starting pitcher on opening day on April 7th of 2000. So you go from the past and to where the Astros come into play.
And this is one of your models as well.
Yeah, this is a model. So it's also in 2020. It's 60 years on October 17th later this year. It's 60 years since Houston was awarded a major league franchise. And so I wanted to highlight that a little bit. And what really helped bring Major League Baseball was the vision of the Astrodome and the structure of the Astrodome. So that's a skeletal model that I built that kind of shows it under construction in 1963.
A little tribute to our scoreboard.
Yeah, we lost Ed Henderson, who was the creator and the wonderful animator. He worked for Disney before coming over to the Astros in the 60s. And he was the creator of Chester Charge. And a lot of people out there probably or should recall seeing Chester Charge and all the wonderful cartoons, and the personality of the Astrodome really came from Ed. He was not just the animator, but he was also a section supervisor and wore one of the red coats in the Astrodome and kind of helped people to their seats and everything else. So he was a lifer for the Astros, and he passed away at the end of January.
All right, another passion of yours, of course, because you took some awesome photo right there. Yeah. You're part of a club, an international group, right? Or
yeah. This is one of my other things. So I'm a native Houstonian, right? And the picture right before this is one of my projects where I take photography of downtown Houston, night photography, and then I create my own digital laser type of shows. And I theme them to music, and I'm a big fan of Jean-Michel Jarre, and this is an actual photo. This photo here, 1986. It was Rendezvous Houston.
April 86,
a million five people saw this, and I was there. I was kind of off over here to the left with my family, and we saw it was a life-changing event. It really set a new standard for creativity for me. So. It's something that I do online.
Well, you learned a little bit more about Mike Acosta and the awesome work that he does with the Houston Astros, being the historian, the authentication manager. Thank you so much for joining us. Now it's the part we get to ask 5 questions. So here we go. We got a good number of people that are still on with us. So thank y'all for staying tuned. That's pretty awesome. We're excited about that. So real quick, let's ask question number 1. What do you think it is? What should we ask the audience to chime in? And we're not going to get the answer out. You're going to answer online like we do every single week. You'll answer online in the comment section on Facebook Live, of course. And then next week we'll give out the answers. And then Mike has some really cool prizes. There's a couple of them. So check that out. Again, authentic Astros baseball items from the games. I mean, you can't any better than that, so we're excited to have that real quick. So you'll learn about that, but real quick, let's start with question number 1. For those folks that paid attention, stayed to the end, enjoyed this great program, and absorbed Houston history, Houston Astros baseball history, what's question number 1, Mike?
Let's go back to before the Astros and before the Colt 45s. We
Okay.
talked about the Houston Buffs.
Okay.
But they came into the Texas League under a different name. So what was the original name of the Houston Buffs as they appeared in 1888 in the Texas League?
Okay, you see, he talked about this, the game with Galveston, right?
Oh, this is after that.
Is that?
This
Okay,
is after
so
that.
you heard all this, all right? So give the answer one more time.
The Houston Babies.
Oh, sorry, give the question.
Here's
one
a
more
question.
So that's going to happen on a live show. That's going to happen on a live show. He's so into it. So the answer is the Houston Babies, but we're not going to give that away. So let's ask another question. That'll be question number 1. That was a little warm-up, right? I got warmed up. You got warmed up. So I got all these things going on
Okay.
production-wise on the other side of this thing. But go for it.
Let's
Something else besides
okay,
that.
how about this? So the Houston Buffs
Uh-huh.
moved to Oklahoma City
Okay.
after the Colt 45s began playing in Houston in 1962. What was the new name of the Houston Buffs when they moved to Oklahoma City? Still associated with the Houston franchise as their farm club, but they changed their name.
And you did mention this on the show, right?
I did mention the name.
Okay, and
yeah.
you can go back and watch the video later on, but anybody chiming in, let's see. Someone did say babies, so that was good, but we're not giving that away. Okay, George Ayers is watching. That's awesome. Katie Hackman still watching. Good people still watching. Okay. Chris Young chimed in with an answer, which we're not going to give away. So, Chris Young, you're probably a winner, but you did answer that question. We don't know the answer yet, but second question.
Second question. Let's one of the the original founding fathers of the Houston franchise.
Ooh, it's often not discussed.
Yeah, the guy who really kind of got the ball rolling.
Oh.
But before Ari Bob Smith,
Okay.
before Roy Hoffines, and
Don't
the
give
guy
it all
who
away.
he brought
brought them all in.
he brought them all in. He brought Craig
Okay.
Cullinan in. Who was the
Oh,
guy?
wow, okay, so-
who was the guy who brought him in?
Oh, the jerseys. Okay, wait, we have to. Okay, so yes, we're going to do 5 questions. By the way, we got a note about the jerseys, and you'd be surprised, Mike. People were chiming in about these jerseys, so there must have been a goal, but they're right behind him. And yes, I think we have to. So what we're going to do is this: we're going to answer these questions or ask the questions. We'll answer them next week, but we will show you jerseys before we leave because we did promise you that. We got some diehard fans. This show's going over long, but it's a live show. So as long as you guys want more, we're here for you. So once again, who was the guy that originally got this ball rolling? Okay, he already gave you process of elimination with some of these, so you can chime in with the answers. I got Jill Brooks answering, one of our awesome board members. We're not going to give the answer away, but Jill, you're chiming in. We appreciate that. Next question, question number 3.
Question number 3 is the special event that was held out in California, in Los Angeles, and San Francisco when the Houston Sports Association wanted to visit the Dodgers and the Giants to see how they put together a stadium deal. And it had a specific name. It was something tour. So what was that tour called?
And you did say it. He did say it. Okay, there you go. So you said it loud and clear. I'm going to ask the question: What year was that renovation that made us lose our awesome scoreboard and the Hawthorne suites that were behind there, all these amazing little rooms that were themed out? What was the year that we started the renovation? Okay, because it did last over the course of, I believe, 2 years. So you can give us either answer. But when did it start? Okay, and you might know this because it's the one that gave us those little turrets around that people movers they call them, I guess. Yeah. So that's one question I'll ask. What year was that? Okay, which we referenced that and talked about it earlier. Question number 5, our last question. What is it?
Let's take a look. This is going to probably be a little bit more subtle. Not sure that we actually said this answer, but I saw a graphic. So if you find the graphic on the screen, then you can win this. What was the first game day for the Astros in the Astrodome?
The actual date.
What was the actual date?
Okay.
Of the very first game in the Astrodome.
And this day is pretty famous too.
It is,
okay?
and you shouldn't miss it.
You shouldn't miss
this
it.
Is something. If you're a Houstonian, you should know this.
Yeah, it's also close to a birthday of the founder. So there we go. So you'll get this answer. Okay, so we will leave it at that. Those are the 5 questions. Okay, we had Rosemary Spalding answering. We had Phil Stewart. Our buddy Phil Stewart answering there too. Chris Boyd answered as well, so lots of good answers. But the answer, we got some Chris Young's answering. Chris Young's got an asterisk by his answer, so Chris will accept that asterisk, okay? We'll look into that. The judges have to look at it, okay? Our awesome production team. Well, lastly, let's see some jerseys. Bring on some jerseys. Show some of the items. Dizzy Dean's slippers. Come closer, guys.
Yeah.
Because we want to show some of the items that we brought. Here's our awesome women's history stuff. So what do you have here? And then we'll bring the jerseys out in a second.
Sure. So these items here, these cleats, were worn by Dizzy Dean in 1931 when he let me stand up right here when he pitched for the Houston Buffs. And if you look on there, you can see that the marks underneath. The big Hall of Fame right-handed pitcher. He went on to pitch for the St. Louis Cardinals, had a Hall of Fame career with the St. Louis Cardinals. This was part of the collection that we purchased from the Finger family. These were on display for a very long time over at the Finger Furniture Store, but now they reside with the Astros. And we were using these on what's called a Touch of History tour. This right here, this in Lucite, these are original tickets to the very, very first game played in franchise history on April 10th, 1962. And the color of the tickets really designates the seating section that you were in. So these are kind of that teal.
We saw those hot metal chairs,
So you were going to sit in the teal metal chairs if you were going to be in there. Now, this is something that's really kind of neat. This is a personal item, kind of a memento of a project that we.
It's just a bunch of rocks, Mike.
It's a bunch of rocks, but you know what?
I'm just kidding.
This is actually the foundation of the Astrodome. So in 2015, when Judge Ed Emmett was in office, we had talked about the time capsule that was buried when they first started construction and they started to put the foundation down over on the west side of the Astrodome, right around column 17. We went looking for the time capsule, and we located it, but we had to dig into the ground and try to see what the foundation was like and what the soil was like underneath the Astrodome property there. And this was part of it. And this is kind of cool. This is a little memento that I saved from that project because everything else was kind of scooped back into that hole and buried again. So that's what that is right there. Now,
and Jim Crane knows you have that?
Yeah. So these items here.
Okay.
These items over here, in the back, these are more modern items. This is Carlos Correa's first Major League helmet that he wore in June of 2015 when he made his Major League debut with the Astros. And we saved this. One of the things that I try to do when some of these, we've had a lot of big-name rookies come up, is we try to get their first Major League hat or maybe their helmet. Sometimes they like continuously using the helmet, but this is the very first one that he wore in his career. They were on the road playing the Chicago White Sox. This is Carlos Correa's first ever game hat, and this is the road hat that was worn that night.
Wait, let me see, Mike. I don't believe you.
Yeah, if you look in there, you'll see the number 1. Yeah,
I believe you. Okay, good. Just authenticating it.
And then this one here, in 2014, this is the year before, this is George Springer's first hat that he ever wore. This is from his Major League debut, that game. You can see the Major League hologram.
So does he know
right
that you
there.
have his hat?
He does, because when we have a Major League debut like that, we actually go to these players and say, hey, we want to save your hat.
Yeah, it's part of history.
We'll give them their jersey for their first Major League game, but we would like to save your hat. And most of the time, we'd never have a problem with that, so we save them and then we can use them on display. This over here, this is Alex Bregman's hat from his very first game in 2016 when he was a rookie. So we have that nice little collection there.
So let's see some jerseys because people are really they're all excited about these jerseys.
So these jerseys over here, this is a nice collection, and you can see these jerseys. Most of these jerseys you can see on the Touch of History tour that we do at Minute Maid Park. We do them periodically. I don't think we've done any in recent time because of the times that we're in, and we're doing the social distancing, and we're trying to find the correct way to do it. But these are the types of things you can see in person. This here, this is an actual 1959 Houston Buffs uniform. This was worn at Buff Stadium. This is a home jersey. The Houston Buffs went through many different type of uniform changes over the years. You know, you had the buffalo on some of them. You have the H here on this particular jersey, and some of them had a red color. Some of them have an H.
So what year is that one? Do we know?
This is a 59.
59,
right
wow.
here. And this is a flannel. We believe this was a coach. I haven't really been able to narrow that down a little bit more, but I believe that this is a coach. We actually have the pants too that goes with this, so it's almost like a full uniform that we have for this. So it's a really nice piece, and it's in very, very good condition.
Let's see what else we got.
And then we have over here, this is also a flannel jersey. This is a 1969 home uniform. This is the very first uniform. This design was the Shooting Star. It came about in 1965 when the Astros became the Houston Astros from the Colt 45s. There is one patch missing on the side, and that was the 100th anniversary of Major League Baseball patch that was on all the uniforms, but it was removed. But I have one to attach to it, an original patch, and this is what it looked like though. And this is my. If you want to look at a classic car of the Astros, this is really the classic car, in my opinion, for the Astros right here. I love this look. Our current design.
And which player wore that one? Do we know?
This is a restored one here.
Oh, okay,
so you have to go back and take a look. It's an original uniform, but it has an 18 on the back, and the number has been restored on the back, so it's not an original.
Because it would have had this kind of embroidery that puffed out.
Yeah, this is what you call chain stitching.
Chain stitching, yeah.
And so it's a very elegant looking design. We actually used it in the 2000s again, and then when we went to our current colors, we stopped using it. We went back to what's called tackle twill on the front. So that's the Shooting Star uniform. And I actually, somebody out there, and I don't know if he's here, but somebody asked if we could see the 1970s zipper front jersey, and that's this one right here. So the orange and navy were used in the early 70s. We went from flannel to to more of a double knit type of jersey, polyester type of outfit, you know, and have used that for a number of years. But you see right here, there's a zipper on the front. And the uniforms went from buttons to zippers, and that was from 1972 to 1974.
This is so educational and so important, because if you're ever like at a thrift stop or an antique place and you see something, call Mike right away. Or buy it and then sell it to you or give it to you. But this is where it belongs, right? Part of the collection.
Yeah. So I've had a lot of people actually come to me and they say, "Hey, what is this?" And in fact, I found some things on eBay. I found a 1980 road uniform, which was the very first the uniform that was worn when the Astros clinched their very first division in 1980. And I mean, realistically, the jersey should have gone for over $100. I bought it for 20. Because it was a T-shirt shop in California who had it.
What they had.
They didn't know what they had. It was all wrinkled. When you hang these things up, they if they get wrinkled and you hang it up, it just kind of irons itself out.
Yeah. I love that. Okay, here we go. What's next? What's next?
We'll look at some of the other ones. This one is really nice here. This is an Enos Cabell 1984 jersey. A lot of people don't know. In fact, I was in a meeting today at work where we were talking about this captain's patch. And this captain's patch here was worn by Enos Cabell. He was the designated captain of the Astros. And this is the only instance in the history of the franchise where somebody was designated to wear some sort of captain's patch. But he didn't like wearing it. So he didn't want to be officially designated as the guy. He wanted to lead by example. He didn't feel he really needed to be pointed out for that. So he stopped wearing that.
We got time for one more jersey, our last jersey, because we got to wrap it up. A lot of y'all have been with us from the very beginning, which we appreciate. So, Mike, last jersey. Here we go.
Let's see, the last jersey. How about this one? I brought Bagwell, Biggio jerseys and all that since they're the franchise icons. This red, brick red jersey. This is from 2007. This was worn in Craig Biggio's very last game as a Houston Astro. He wore 7 jerseys that day, and one went to the Hall of Fame. The other stayed with Craig, and this one stayed with the Astros. And it's signed by him on the back, and also has a major hologram there. So this one was worn for his very, very last game that he played in a Houston uniform. And kind of an interesting story with that. That day, I remember that day very vividly. At the end of 2007, he was retiring after 20 years with the Astros. He has more years in a Houston uniform than any other player. And he stayed in his uniform for 2+ hours. I mean, the game ended, it was a 105-110 type of game. It was a Sunday afternoon, and the game ended about 4:10. And we were literally still there after 6 o'clock, and he was there still in full uniform sitting at his locker, and he was hanging out with Brad Osmus and some of the other guys on the team. And I think it was just kind of tough for him to get out of that uniform, to make that transition from player to, a retired player.
Civilian.
Yeah.
Oh, my goodness. Okay, well, we're out of time now, so I want to make sure that we once again thank Mike Acosta for joining us here. Round of applause from home. You guys, give us the hearts, man. Give us the hearts if you like Mike Acosta and you're happy. Tell them your social media handles so they can follow you, because that's good for us.
Yeah. Well, on Twitter, I post a lot of historic content almost daily at Astros Talk on Twitter. And then I have an Instagram called Digital Rendezvous, but I post some Astros stuff there, but it's a lot of other art projects and creative projects, and you'll see a lot of Astrodome content.
Pretty accomplished artist too. People don't realize that side of you.
I do a lot of drawing, a lot of comic book type drawing and painting digitally, and then there's also the Astrodome renovation project. I don't share. Believe me, I don't share not even 2% of my project on there, but you'll see a lot of Astrodome and renovation content on there as well.
And then, of course, near and dear to all of our hearts, speaking of preservation, Astrodome Conservancy, like and follow their social media sites.
Correct.
Beth and the team over there, because they do a great job. And you'll learn about what's happening with the Astrodome first from them, you know, if anybody, because they're working on the forefront of that. Okay, thank you again for joining us, Mike Acosta. Thank you for tuning in. Lastly, I want to thank our big team over here, Alana, Isaac, Kian, of course, Kai, and then Allison Ayers-Bell, and Manette Basel, our board president. Thank you so much for joining us. We are not going to be here next Wednesday because we're going to be celebrating Houston's 184th birthday, which you can tune in at Mr. McKinney's Historic Houston, live from the Heritage Society with the radio show we do called the Houston Hour. So thank you again, and good night. Take care.